what's up, metal and heavy music fans? It's Flight of Icarus again with MetalTrenches.com, and today we're going to rank the discography of epic heathen metal band Moonsorrow. And hey, if you like to be kept up to date with the best and brightest metal bands and albums from the underground and above, then stick with me by hitting that subscribe button down below. Alright, as usual, y'all, let's get right into it. Black metal, folk metal, pagan metal, but it's progressive metal. Lots of stuff going on with Moonsorrow, but they have coined their own term, epic heathen metal. Let's start right from the beginning. Again, I'm going to butcher all these pronunciations, especially when we get to certain albums, but let's start with the debut, and we will be focusing just on full lengths here, but we're going to talk about Sudon Ouni. And what a great start. Like, right from the top, fantastic work. Was an early favorite of mine. I believe when I was exposed to these guys, I went through them more or less in order, and I was just blown away by just how huge these guys sound with the atmosphere. And again, that perfect fusion of like prog, folk, pagan, black metal, just so triumphant. Perfect for somebody who like me who loves big kind of like epic sounding, but still harsh music. And lots of dynamics. Those drums just seem to echo on into eternity. And just lots of great tracks. Again, I'm not even going to try to pronounce them. But a balance, too, of like all the instrumentation. We got great, memorable riffs. We've got really cool kind of acoustic sections here with the folky elements, the jaw harp that comes in, the driving beats, and then again, the symphonic elements of it with the synth and everything. There's that jaw harp. Any other music would make that corny, but not with Moonsorrow. Fantastic. One of my personal favorites here, the third track. Just listen to those melodies. So fantastic. So much fun. So many positive things I can say about this band and just all the things that they do. But yeah, first album, fantastic. But they get even better from here. I kind of toyed where I wanted to place this album for a while, and ultimately I'm still landing at A tier. Really solid start. But let's keep on trucking here to Voimasta Ja Kunniasta. Almost a perfect album. Like, pretty darn close. So many, like, every moment of this album is fantastic. Takes everything that Sudon Ouni does and does it even better. Huge intro, huge sound. Production is a little bit stronger, a little bit more balanced on this one. And more consistent, too, because Sudon Ouni loses me a little bit in some of the second half. Although I didn't even mention, well, pause and a little retraction here. I didn't even showcase 1065 Aika, which is an 11-minute track and is just fantastic. Just deserves talking about in its own right. But in any case, yeah, every song on here is fantastic. Again, these just driving, motivated rhythms. I love the sword play on the beginning of this one. More of the black metal and kind of Viking stuff coming in here too. More jaw harp. Gotta love that dedicated jaw harp. Few do it as well. Just big, powerful opening. And just as the songs progress, just more and more things happen. Again, very dynamic. The songwriting. Oi, oi. Clapping. It's just, you cannot not get caught up. Sorry about the double negative there, but you can't not get caught up in these tracks and their energy. And it's just, again, the perfect cross-section of like all of those different, everything I love the most about every genre that I name with these guys is all included on these albums. And yeah, start to finish, this is just a very powerful album. If you have not listened to this one, you're severely missing out. So many amazing moments, and you will just get lost in it. Oh, I love this melody too. But yeah, suffice it to say, one of my favorites from them, easy S tier. Chef's kiss. But let's keep going, because we got another album here that we definitely have to talk about, and is a common favorite commonly talked about album amongst Moonsorrow fans, and that is Kivenkantaja, something like that. This is where like I really feel like they're flexing their progressive influences on their sleeves. You still get all that like pagan and folky vibe of the first two albums, but here I feel like there's also more kind of like Enslaved was doing. There's that Enslaved influence, and they're influenced by like Pink Floyd, so I even hear some of that in these albums. Not as experimental and weird. And the chanting, and the production again continuing to get better from album to album. The dynamics, the ups and downs of the songwriting. So again, this is a hard band to talk about because every album has similar qualities that I love so much, but they each kind of like build on one another and have a little bit something different to offer. No less heavy on this album either. But I remember just hearing some of these moments and being absolutely blown away. Yeah, it's like you can just like close your eyes and just click on a random moment in the song, especially on this album, and you will land on something interesting. But yeah, especially like the first 4 tracks of this album are flawless, but really the entire thing, front to back, more great melodies there. Like they managed, that's the cool thing too, is that even though like sometimes prog music can get a little bland, especially in the longer songs, there's those like final countdown synths there. It's the final countdown. That's what that makes me think of. But yeah, prog can get kind of up its ass sometimes, but Moonsorrow doesn't, because they still incorporate all those important hooks that keep you engaged, keep you coming back, and keep the song kind of lingering in your brain. This one has a ton of ups and downs too. Like these slower parts with the accordion, and then picking up too. Nice transition there. And then the big Europe synths again. Man, another one, easily S tier. Gotta be S tier. It's really hard for me to compare these two. They're just so close, but they both belong at S tier. I will definitely tell you that without any sort of hesitation. All right, but then we've got Verisäkeet, and this is where the band loses me a little bit. Still a solid album, but just not, considering how epic, like each of those albums, like I said, builds on one another and just gets more and more massive and powerful sounding, and then this one's just kind of okay. Like, it's got some really solid moments on it. I particularly like this opening here, and this is just a very kind of hypnotic, kind of plodding track, a little bit more droning. So I really like this one. Tracks getting longer overall here too. Lots of like 14-minute tracks on this album. And still lots of great dynamics, but I just don't find them to be quite as memorable as those other songs. But yeah, these two in particular are my favorites on this album. Still bringing those hooks, whether it be through the synth, the flutes, the guitar, or whatever. They bring them. But then, yeah, the other tracks, they're solid too. Like, it's an enjoyable album that I just had fun re-listening to all these again too, by the way, preparing for this tier list. And what a day to just listen to all the Moonsorrow albums. I was in like such a cool mind space. It's just got this very chill quality to it. But overall, Verisäkeet, good, not quite as good as the others. I'm going to go ahead and put it at B tier. Again, perfectly acceptable, above average, still one of the better kind of albums in the genre, but stacked up against these other ones, has a hard time living up to them. All right, then we start getting into some albums that I don't own, but I do still listen to, and again, re-listen to in preparation for this. And so we've got Viides, luku. And speaking of tracks getting longer, this is just one massive track. Like, it's not split up at all. It's basically almost an hour long. And I'll admit, like, that really put me off at first. I'm not a big fan of that. I like it at least when you still split it up into kind of movements so I can skip to different parts. The idea of just this one blob as one track, on the album is a little daunting and overwhelming to me and makes re-listenability a little bit difficult. So I kind of like avoided this album for a long time and as a result haven't listened to it as much. But I'll tell you, going in and listening to it this time, I was like, wow, man, I've been missing out. Like, there are so many solid moments in this album, and I will say it's a lot better than Verisäkeet overall. Again, I'd still like it if they broke it up a little bit more, just add on to the replayability factor, kind of like Insomnium did on Winter's Gate. But even without that, I have to give credit where it's due. It's really hard to pull off. Like, most bands have a hard time doing like a 10-minute plus track and actually making it worth that time. Like, I feel like most bands try that and it just ends up being this bloated, repetitive mess. Not here. Not a second is wasted. I'm going to put this one at A tier. I don't like it quite as much as these three overall. But again, kind of unfair because I haven't listened to it as many times as the other ones. So definitely looking forward to spending some more time with that moving forward. All right, then we have the album that I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name. It has the longest title. I'm just going to call it Varjoina. That's the first word of the title. And moving from this album that blew me away and surprised me at how much I like it, this one is the complete opposite. This is easily my least favorite Moonsorrow album. It's still solid. It's definitely not D tier. It's at least average. And there's nothing like wrong with it per se. It's just in comparison again to all these other albums, I find it to be pretty dull. Like, it just feels like a retread of ideas. The hooks aren't there quite as much as they could be. The originality is not there. Some of the energy and flavor is not there. I'm not exactly sure why. It's hard for me to put my finger on it. And I know some people really loved this album and still love this album. And if you're one of them, that's totally fine. It's all subjective, as we say. But for me, yeah, I find this one to be bland, dull, least likely to go and grab this one and give it a re-listen compared to anything else in the Moonsorrow series. But now that brings us to the final album, which I do own, because I came back around and I picked up Jumalten Aika, or Aika, or however you pronounce that. And this is an interesting album. Like it kind of almost demonstrates on the album art. The other ones are so much more colorful and kind of lush. This one's just straight, black and gray. And the music kind of reflects that. It's still got all the elements of their previous material, but it does feel a lot more kind of pagan, a lot more black metal, a lot darker in many places. The atmosphere is just shifted a bit. And I recall in like interviews and stuff, they sort of talked about wanting to make a really harsh record. And this is definitely that. So taking all of those elements that they've done so well and applying it with a slightly different aesthetic was, I think, a good move for them too. Because, like I said, I felt like their style was kind of getting stale moving into those later albums. So it was nice to hear them trying something a little bit different, even if it's still patented Moonsorrow. I actually have the patch for this one. It came with the CD. It's on my battle vest behind me, and very happy to sport any kind of Moonsorrow patch. But yeah, my personal two favorites are this one and the last track too. Got some just very aggressive guitars on this one. And just again, it's Moonsorrow. It's the same yet different. Just like a slight shift in the mood by a couple notches. And yeah, I really enjoy this album. Not quite as much as the other ones, again, but I think this was like a big return to form for them. I like it a lot more than the last one, for sure. And there's a lot of things to enjoy on here, a lot of moments. Start to finish, not quite as consistent as some of these other albums. I'm going to go ahead, though, and put it at B tier. And again, between this and Verisäkeet, it's a little tricky. I think I probably re-listen to this one a little bit more, so I'll give it a slight edge on that. And that's it, y'all. Those are my Moonsorrow rankings for the full-length albums. As you can see, whoever put this tier list together has all of these other EPs and stuff, because they have a lot of material. Like, there's a lot of stuff I could dive into, but I wanted to stick to the core albums. And yeah, I'm going to leave the link to this like I always do in the comments so that you can make your own. If you want to rank everything, then feel free to do so. If you want to hear just my overall ranking, taking kind of the tiers out of it, it goes from right to left, basically. So is the way I would put it. But again, like, these are really tough and kind of interchangeable, but I think everything else feels like it's sort of in its right place. But yeah, let me know down in the comments what's your favorite Moonsorrow album, what's your least favorite Moonsorrow album, and why. How would you rank them overall? And let's just get a conversation going, because it's always a good time, and I do read and respond to those comments. And hey, stick around in general, because I got plenty more videos coming right after this one. But that'll do it for now. Flight of Icarus signing off. I'll see you in the trenches.